Both of my great-grandparents immigrated to the United States from Portugal. My great-grandmother Mary immigrated here in 1908 when she was only 4 years old. She came with her parents, her 2 sisters, and her brother. They traveled to Ellis Island, New York, on a ship that departed from St. Michael, Azores. The journey was very difficult. It was extremely crowded and dirty, and there were a fair amount of deaths. Mary and her family then boarded another ship to Fall River, Massachusetts. They finally moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is where they remained. The first Portuguese came to New Bedford in the 1800s. There were a lot of job opportunities in New Bedford, which is why so many people immigrated there. After they arrived, Mary's mother had 4 more children. Mary's father rented a house on a farm, and her father and older siblings worked on the farm selling vegetables, milk, and eggs in order to support the family. Mary went to school, but only until the 4th grade because she had to work. She began working on the farm with her siblings in the morning and worked in the mills for the rest of the day. In 1911, New Bedford became the nation's leading textile manufacturing city. Mary worked in the mills for most of her life, primarily as a speed attender, which involved making threads. Work in the mills was extremely difficult. The workdays were long and the workers were treated poorly. In the late 1920s, manufacturers from New Bedford were pressured by competition in the South and consequently reduced wages for the workers in the mills. After this, there was a 6-month strike and a lot of the mills in New Bedford closed. When she was 20 years old, she married my great-grandfather Variado. When Variado was younger, he traveled to the United States from St. Michael with his father and 3 brothers. Just like my great-grandmother, they traveled to Ellis Island, to Fall River, and finally to New Bedford. Variado also worked in the mills, though not in the same mill as Mary. Variado went through many struggles after immigrating to the United States, just as Mary did. His father went back to Portugal, abandoning the family, so Variado and his older brother had to work more in order to support their mother and younger brothers. Variado's older brother soon got married and left Variado in charge of the family. Taking care of the family was a huge responsibility, and my great-grandfather had to work extremely hard. Many years later, he married my great-grandmother and they had a child. Although they had both overcome many obstacles after immigrating to the country, life still wasn't easy after they got married. The Great Depression hit the United States in 1930 and left many people out of work for a very long time. Most of Mary's family immigrated to New Jersey, so it was just her, Variado, and their daughter. During the Depression, Variado worked on the road for the city in order to buy food for the family. Providing for 2 people is difficult enough. My great-grandparents also had a child to care for. In 1932, the Depression started to heal, and my grandmother Rita was born. Since the Depression was getting better, Variado went back to work in the mills. The Depression took a toll on the mills, and the textile industry never fully recovered. However, between 1937 and 1947, jobs in the mills increased by 20%. A couple of years later, my great-grandparents had 1 more child and went on to have a successful life. It's interesting just how similar their childhoods were. They both came from St. Michael, Portugal, and grew up in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is where they met. Although they both went through many struggles when immigrating to the United States, they worked hard and were able to get through very tough times. I was able to learn about the experiences of my great-grandparents by interviewing my grandmother. By talking to her, I was able to learn more about immigration and the history of my family.